What up, watch peeps? Sorry if I'm coming in Seiko heavy lately, but I've got another one for you today. They had so many good releases in 2020 that I started looking at some of the other models that I haven't experienced yet. And that's how I ended up with my list of 80 Seikos that I want. Now I know the $1,000 Seikos might rub some people the wrong way. I'm okay with it, but honestly, after owning the 62 Mas limited edition, the SPB103, I don't know that I need them. There's so many good Seikos in the $300 to $500 range with the King Turtles and the King Samurais that I could be just fine with those. Now the new Sumo comes in somewhere in between those two, but you can find them on Watch Recon for around 500-ish, and that's what I did. So let's take a look. I'm Pete, and we are chilling with watches. Wrist check. I'm just wearing my Freestyle Shark today, and this is on one of those fitted rubber straps that I picked up for it. It's just super cool, really comfortable, fun to wear. But let's take a look at the new Sumo. So, like I said, I picked this one up on Watch Recon. It did come with a, warranty card, stamped, dated just April 2020, so it's still pretty dang new. You got your instruction book. This is the 6R35 model, the new ones. And these come in a bunch of different cool colors. And I know the first thing you're going to notice is that I already swapped out the bezel insert. We'll talk about that in a bit. But these do come in a bunch of cool colors. The base models like this green and the black, the initial releases, those retailed at $850. Then you got the ice divers, which had those really cool textured dials and like kind of pastel colors. I think those retailed at $900, so not much more than that. So yeah, mine came with a ceramic bezel. So this is the ceramic bezel that it came with. I really didn't like it. It didn't really match the dial, if you see there. It's a nice quality bezel. It's real thick, but no, all right. So I never really had the OEM bezel on it. But it would have looked something like this minus the fat font. So matches much better, emerald green. The dial was always just a little bit darker than even that emerald bezel. I do like the all green look, but I thought with that, this might look really cool with the steel bezel. So that's what I picked up eventually from your Bokies and replaced it on here. You can see it doesn't quite sit flush with the bezel. And at first that really bothered me, but then it kind of gives the bezel a little bit of a dimension that I think is kind of cool. But my plan was never really to leave it on this OEM bracelet, which is pretty nice. You see the end links sit a little low on the lugs. I'm fine with that, but it's not fantastic. I do like the raised center links. I think those are very cool. The clasp is great. It has really nice like resistance and it stays down really tight. I hate the diver's extension that Seiko puts on here. It's just awkward and weird. So my plan all along was to get the Crafter Blue rubber strap that really matches this dial better than it ever matched the bezel insert. So the steel bezel and that all came together real nice. Let's take a look at that. And here's how that came out. And oh yeah, that looks great. That dial and this strap really go together great. The steel bezel kind of just works with it all. You can see how that emerald green bezel just would not have worked with this strap at all. I hate to review a watch not in its stock configuration, but at least I showed you what that kind of would have looked like. So these come with the new 6R35 movement with that 70-hour power reserve. I've heard reports of them being inaccurate. I actually have no idea how this one is running. We'll find out in a little bit, but I never time my watches, guys, only for the videos. I really don't care about accuracy. My watch could be off by 2 minutes a day, and I honestly would never notice. So my Seiko Turtle has long been my favorite Seiko, but when I started wearing this, I really reevaluated that. The sweeping curves of this case, the way it hugs the wrist like nothing else. It has that, that banana case that I kind of alluded to with the Alpinist. And I had a Marine Master 200 too, and I just like the way this wears better. It's got a big old crown. Actually, I have no idea how big that is, but let's guess 7. Yeah, 6.8. The areas of polish and brushing are really cool on this watch. See if we can get a look at that. So you see it's polished on top, and it's got this thin strip of brushed in the middle. Kind of hard to capture there, but you can see it. And then it goes to polished again. And it even does that down on the lugs. You'll see it's brushed on the tip, brushed on the tops. But there's kind of like that brush polish that all comes together. I just think it's really cool the way that all plays with the light. And I love the way it wears. It of course has drilled lugs like all the Pro Specs Seikos do. And where the lug meets the strap, now I showed you on the bracelet how that kind of sat a little low. I was fine with it, but it doesn't look great. This kind of, that transition of that top little sweep there meets the top of this strap. I think this just is a really cool, cohesive look. I've always loved Sumos on the Crafter Blue straps. They just look amazing. Now I love this bezel. The way you can kind of see there, it's like, I like an onion crown. It's wider at the top, kind of angling out than it is at the bottom, but it's just nestled in the case there. Like, you know, there's hardly any protruding on the sides. Just a really neat design. I mean, no one beats Seiko on case design, right? I know Micros are doing some really cool things, but nothing like this. So if you look close at the insert here, you'll see the insert actually rises from the edge of the bezel, and then where those minute markers are, it actually drops back down to meet the crystal. Just a really cool effect. Now this bezel, I'm assuming it left that little ridge on the edge because it's not quite as thick as the OEM or some of the other even aftermarket ones that would sit flush, but it still does drop down to meet the crystal very nicely. Looking at the dial, of course the hands are stacked, and it's just a handset that I really like. We'll open that up. I love the hour hand. I love the minute hand. Very kind of sorty. It's got that stoplight seconds hand. And the dial is just like a mesmerizing green. If I can get light on it right, you can see it. Seiko does this thing where they have this almost matte sunburst effect. It's really wild. It's beautiful, and it even looks almost black in some light, as you can see here. But big old lume plots like Seiko always does. Fantastic. So, you know, you got me curious. Let's throw this bad boy on the time grapher and see how it actually is running. So as you guys can see here, this is one of the wackier traces I've had on any of my watches. There are a bunch of little outlying dots. Trace isn't too clean. It's running about plus 13. That doesn't bother me at all. I think that is technically within spec. 245 on the amplitude. 0 beat error. You know, fine with me. Plus 9. I don't know. On the wrist, I didn't really notice it ever being off, but I don't wear my watches for more than a couple days, so there you go. Taking a look at the dimensions of the case, and these are as I measured them myself. It is a 44.8 millimeter case, that is excluding the crown. 51.8 millimeters lug tip to lug tip. 13 millimeters thick, might have been 12.9, with 22 millimeter lugs. And going over some of the other specs on the watch, these models do feature sapphire crystal with Seiko Lume Bright Lume. Fantastic. And these have the new 6R35 movement with the 70-hour power reserve, and they feature 200 meters of water resistance. It came in at about 180 grams on the OEM bracelet size for my 7¼ inch wrist, but on this Crafter Blue strap it came in at 129 grams. And on wrist, here is how it looks on my 7¼ inch wrist, and how I was talking about, if I can get that angle, how it kind of just hugs the wrist with that banana shape. It really sits lower than you would think for such a big watch. Really wears great. Let's take a look at it side by side some other watches. So here it is next to the Turtle that I love so much. These are actually pretty similarly sized watches, the Sumo only being about a millimeter bigger case-wise. Thickness is pretty similar as well overall. And next to the Seiko SKX, because, you know, you gotta, which is a 42 millimeter watch versus a 45 millimeter watch. You can see they both use the same size dial. So you're really making up that extra real estate in bezel thickness and case size. But yeah, the Sumo has a little bit of an illusion of being thinner than the SKX, even though it is not. And lastly, I picked up an Orient Ray just for comparisons. I thought this would be another good common watch to give people a point of comparison. Now the Ray is a 41 or 41.5 millimeter case. So you can see it definitely is larger than that, but not much thicker, if any. Lastly, let's take a look at that Lume Bright.
Keep the Lume.
As always with Seiko, you know, fantastic Lume. This thing glows super bright. So there it is, the new Seiko Sumo 6R35. I love this thing, especially on the crafter blue strap. I think that green and stainless is a killer combo. The green dial's a lot of fun without being too bright or stand outish. I mean, it even looks black in some light, right? Let me know what you guys think. Share your thoughts in the comments. Before I let you go, sneaker check. Wearing my Jordan 11s today. Alright, that is it. I am out. If it's not too much trouble, like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.